Charlie Kirk was assassinated this week. There should be no reason that I have to give the following preamble, but I'm going to launch into it anyway. I do not care what you think of Charlie Kirk or his politics. It is despicable to use violence to achieve your political goals. People who are celebrating the murder of Kirk should be shunned from polite society. If you find yourself saying something along the lines of, Charlie Kirk once said blah, 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 you're an idiot. And unfortunately, you're veering into the realm of the immoral. A man was murdered. We don't celebrate that. We don't condone or excuse it. If your gut reaction is to try and find a way to blame Kirk, a man who used his words to argue for his beliefs for this cowardly attack, you're in the wrong. Look in the mirror. Do some reflection. Change. You're doing a bad thing. I'm Tyler Chrestman. Welcome to the Chrestman Conversation. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm going to warn you right from the top of this episode that this is a bummer. This episode is a downer, and I know normally on the show, I try and keep it a little positive or a little upbeat. I like to joke. I like to have fun. Sometimes we make fun of people. Sometimes we just have a laugh. That's not what this episode really is. This episode really bothers me. And yesterday was kind of an emotional day. And I'm recording this on Thursday, so yesterday was Wednesday for me right now. Yesterday was kind of an emotional day for me. There was this murder of Charlie Kirk, this assassination really got to me in a couple ways we're going to get into. So I'm just warning you right off the top, this is a bummer episode. It's not my usual fun nonsense that we like to get into. This really got to me. So on today's episode, we're going to talk about both the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the other super duper bummer story of the week, which is the murder of that poor Ukrainian woman in North Carolina, which is just as horrible and just awful. So we're going to talk about two really, really terrible topics that I wish I didn't have to talk about. So, but before we get into that, let's try and have a note of positivity on this week's episode. So last week, I don't know if you remember, but last week I said I would read out the names of all the people who donated to the annual 9/11 stair climb that I participated in on Sunday. And so let's start that out by let me say thank you to everyone who donated. It's a big deal to me, this event, every year that I do it. And I'm very appreciative of every single person who donated money because it all goes to help the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, which helps families of firefighters killed in the line of duty. So it's a good thing to raise money for, and it's important to remember how terrible 9/11 was. It seems every year, now we have people participating in this climb, firefighters, grown adult men firefighters who were not born before 9/11. And so it's important that we remember this because people literally were not alive who now work in this field and don't necessarily remember what it was like before that. So obviously they don't remember what it was like before 9/11 or how terrible that day was or how scary it was for many people in America. So it's important that we keep not only the memory of that event, those people in our minds, but the importance of how that helped shape the world for the last 25 years. So anyway, I just want to say thank you to everyone who donated. And so thank you, Polk Williams. Thank you to my sister Margie and my brother-in-law Joe. Thank you, Tim Block, Matt Runge, Bill DeForest, Kristen Culbertson, and Olivia Moore. Thank you, everyone who donated. And I really appreciate all of you. Just thank you. It all goes to a good cause. I barely stole any of it. And so I appreciate every single one of you who donated. I really do. And next year, normally I like to do this well in advance. This year, it just seems like the climb, all of a sudden it was September. I would go, oh my gosh, I only have a week until the climb. And normally I like to announce this a little bit in advance. So I really do appreciate everyone kind of helping me out with some last week donations that really put me over where I wanted to go money-wise for the amount we raised as a team. So I appreciate everyone. Thank you to all those people I just listed, and I really do appreciate it. And it all went to a good cause. And so, and now, again, before we get into more downer stuff, that's positivity right at the top. My favorite comment from last week comes from my friend Ludolf, who said, "I wonder how many cartel leaders are turning pale seeing that boat get hit." And I got to tell you, I hope you're right, and that many of the cartel leaders are turning pale and quaking in their boots. I doubt it, but because they don't care. They don't care about the guys on the street. The guys on the street are not important to them. There's thousands of them, and these guys, the heads of the cartel, they sit in their mansions counting their money. They're removed from the violence. Now, that changes when you hit one of those compounds with a missile. That changes the equation, because then the leaders realize that it's not just the guys on the street who are used to getting it and they don't care, they're expendable. But when you start taking out the heads of the snake, it's a little bit different. So, Ludolf, I hope you're right, and I hope that we get to that point. And I'm glad to see that you were a supporter in the comments this week of the military action on the cartel, because I've been advocating for it for years. So anyway, appreciate the comment as always. Now, let's get in to the first topic on hand, the murder of Charlie Kirk. As I was saying in the beginning of the episode, this is a hard one. This is a difficult one for me. Obviously, this is difficult for a lot of people. I'm not going to pretend that I'm special. I didn't know Charlie Kirk. I never met him. It's not like he was a personal buddy of mine. But he was a big deal for the conservative movement. He was one of the guys who, maybe more than any other person, spoke to young people and brought more people from Gen Z into the conservative side of the argument than anyone else. He did it in what I think is the way that it should be done, by going to the places where liberals congregate, bringing conservative ideas to them, and debating the topics in a good way. He was, for the most part, a pretty respectful guy. Obviously, sometimes in debates, things get contentious or whatever the case, but for the most part, he was a respectful guy who used his words to debate ideas. I have seen now numerous accounts of him in private, not in public, but through private correspondence, talking about how he loved everybody and just wanted the best for everyone in the world. And all of these people online who are giving him grief or talking about his legacy in a negative way are just bottom feeders. They're trash. I have nothing nice to say about them. This was a guy who founded an organization that was designed at meeting young people where they were at and trying to educate them about ideas of conservatism, the conservative movement and Republican politics and the Constitution, that with no bias, but just would hand out the Constitution to college students and just say, hey, make sure you read this at some point. Again, some of these things are not even partisan topics, just good things that he was doing on college campuses in general. He was a good guy. He was. By all accounts, I haven't seen anything about this guy being immoral. He had a wife. He had 2 young children. He was a 30-year-old young man with the world in front of him who, by the age of 30, has accomplished more in his short life than many people will in 80 years, 2 lifetimes even. He has done more, and he did more in his short time on Earth than most people ever hope to accomplish. And he is going to be missed by many, many people. He was assassinated on Wednesday by some coward who shot a man from 200 yards away for what we don't know yet, because he hasn't been caught. We don't know. There was some reporting that they found the rifle, and there were some left-wing ideology scratched into either the gun itself or some of the ammo, some pro-transgender, pro-gay, whatever the case may be. There were some reports of this. We don't know. I'm not going to verify it as absolute fact, but it wouldn't surprise me. Obviously, I think that this was the person who killed Kirk was on the left. I think that is a pretty obvious thing. I haven't watched the video of the shooting. I don't like to watch these things. I'm not going to watch it. I've managed to skip it in social media and the feed. I think that if you don't have to see these kind of things, you shouldn't watch. It takes a piece of you to watch these kind of events. I've seen more death in my life than 99% of people who've ever lived, because both the line of work that I'm in, as well as the fact that the internet just inundates you with terrible things all the time. And so if you lived 200 years ago, you might not see that many dead people in your entire life. But the internet just wants to show you. Every other video was this video of Charlie Kirk being shot, and it's terrible. I'm not going to watch it. It's troubling, the uptick in violence and the uptick in these kind of events that have happened in the past few years. I wrote an article. I just posted it. I wound up posting it on Facebook, and it's on my website as well. Feel free. Please go read it. I wrote it immediately in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk getting shot. I wrote it yesterday afternoon as I was trying to deal with some feelings. And it is, so I think it encapsulates some of my views on the rise in violence. But that article was written as a call for left and right. Now, this show, we talk politics a lot on this show. Let me say something here, because some people were disagreeing with me in the comments on Facebook. I think that the majority of the violence in this country, political violence in this country, comes from the left. I think that that is absolutely, without a doubt, 100% factually backed up and true. Someone said, oh, the FBI and the DOJ, all these places say that far-right extremism is the real threat. And I just think that that is absolutely insane. There's not a left-wing politician who is in the same boat as someone like Donald Trump or Charlie Kirk. You could say, oh, Nancy Pelosi. And I use Nancy Pelosi as an example. It seems to me maybe politically motivated, but I'm not 100% sure on that. It seemed like this one guy was like a schizophrenic, crazy person, homeless, typical San Francisco resident who beat up Nancy Pelosi's husband. I think that's terrible. I think it is bad. Was it politically motivated? I'm not 100% sure. What about this? They'll say January 6th. January 6th, the right participates in political violence all the time. Look at January 6th. I say, or name one other right-wing riot that's happened. Can you find one? The answer is no. It doesn't exist. When? I think 2020 alone solidifies the left as the violent ones. 2020, name a left-wing speaker who has been assaulted on a college campus in the last 10 years. I can name a half dozen, a dozen, just off the top of my head right now, about right-wing speakers going to college campuses who've been assaulted or threatened or had bombs thrown at them. Michael Knowles had a pipe bomb thrown at a building that he was in, a little incendiary device. I know Ben Shapiro's been threatened. There was, who was it? Charles Murray. Charles Murray was assaulted on a college campus. Name a left-wing politician or speaker who's been assaulted on the college campus or giving a talk. What about Salman Rushdie? Salman Rushdie, that one doesn't really fall in the rubric. Salman Rushdie was killed by a jihadist. Do we think that they vote for the right? I think he was attacked in New York. Do we think that guy was a conservative? I doubt it. Do we think that the political violence that we saw in 2020, there's a building. I pointed this out multiple times on this show. Right outside where I live, there was a building burnt to the ground. People were walking around with lighting fires in the street, threatening people. I was there. I saw what it was like. There was a guy who tried to put out a fire that they had lit in the middle of the street, and someone walked over to him with a pistol and threatened him. Was that? Do we think the people who were rioting for St. George Floyd, do we think that they were right-wingers? No. So this idea, Donald Trump was shot in the ear. There was another attempted assassination against him. One of the most prominent conservatives in the country was just murdered. Steve Scalise and 3 Republican staffers were shot at a congressional baseball game by a Bernie Sanders supporter. An entire city in Seattle was taken over and turned into a left-wing Antifa zone. Antifa itself, as an organization, is a threat, is a political organization on the left. Where are the equivalent on the right? Where is this political violence? Do you think that I don't see a lot of right-wing people causing mayhem in the streets? Where are they? Where are those people? I don't know what you're talking about. So yes, I think it comes from the left. I think it is nonsense to say that the rhetoric itself, the rhetoric alone, the I could probably right now, without having to do, I'm just guessing this. I am positive. I would bet a gigantic sum of money that within 5 minutes, I could find almost any prominent politician you could name off the top of your head, referring to either Republicans or Donald Trump as a fascist, as a dictator, comparing him to Hitler, saying that they are an existential threat to the republic. I could find this about who? Name a person. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, AOC, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom. Do you think I couldn't find any prominent left-wing politician speaking like this about the Republican Party? What do you think? If I was to tell you every single day, the news media, politicians, if I was to tell you every single day that Republicans are a threat to your democracy, there's never going to be an election. Donald Trump's going to be dictator for life. The Republicans are jackbooted thugs. They're fascists. They're trying to take over the country, and they're never going. They hate everyone. They're racist. I say all these terrible things. And then I go, oh my God, I can't believe someone shot at Donald Trump. How terrible. Isn't political violence wrong? It's ridiculous. The fact that you have someone like Elizabeth Warren coming out and saying, oh my gosh, political violence is so terrible. Yeah, quit acting as though Donald Trump is the worst thing that's ever happened in the world. It's despicable. It's disgusting because it's like a get out of jail free card. Well, I don't like political violence. Listen, when I call Donald Trump Hitler, when I say that he's going to destroy American democracy and be dictator for life and that Republicans are fascists and no one respects everything, they're all racist and sexist and homophobic and they want to put black people back in chains. When I say these kind of things and then someone does something about it, how dare they? It's crazy because violence is wrong. Why is violence wrong? If Donald Trump is Hitler, why is it wrong to shoot him? I don't know the answer to that question. I don't think it's wrong to kill Hitler. Hitler's bad. Why wouldn't I want to kill Hitler? Hitler's a bad guy. Nazis are bad. How can you say out of one side of your mouth that Donald Trump is Hitler, Republicans are Nazis, and out of the other side of your mouth say political violence is wrong? What are you talking about? It is not wrong to kill Nazis. World War II wasn't an unjust war. We had every right to kill Nazis. Nazis committed the Holocaust. Nazis were incredible racists and white supremacists, the Aryan race. They were bad people. Yeah, Adolf Hitler was a pretty bad guy. I don't know if you know this. Despite the revisionist history that some people like, Adolf Hitler was a bad guy, okay? I think almost everyone agrees with this. And so, yeah, it's probably a good thing that we killed him, or he killed himself, whatever the case may be. We forced him to. Why wouldn't we do that with Donald Trump? How can you out of one side of your mouth say Republicans are the most evil thing that ever lived, and then you go, oh my God, why would someone shoot Charlie Kirk? It doesn't work that way. I don't think that there's anything that people are going to say. You sit here and you say, I think that communists, I think that socialists are misguided. I think that it's bad. I think that socialism would destroy any country that it's practicing on a large scale. I think communism is an evil ideology. Do I think that anything that I'm talking about motivates anyone to go murder AOC? No, I don't think so. I think AOC is a moron. I think that her ideology is misguided. I think she's wrong. Do I think that there's any chance that the rhetoric on the right is going to get somebody to go shoot Zoran Mamdani in New York? No. What are you talking? Everybody on the right is talking about this guy, how he has never done anything with his life. His socialist ideology is ridiculous. He's going to bankrupt New York. Where is the equivalent rhetoric on the right of every single person in the media and that saying all of these people are going to are fanning the tension, I guess is what I'm saying, fanning the flames, stoking fear and hatred and division, and the equivalent in the way that it's done to Donald Trump. I don't see it. I do not understand what you're talking about. I try because I get it. I think that you can't just call everyone a socialist. I think AOC calls herself a socialist. I think Bernie Sanders calls himself a socialist. I think many Democrats actually believe socialism is a good thing. I disagree with this. You're calling Donald Trump a fascist. Has Donald Trump ever called himself a fascist? Does he think of himself as a fascist? If you ask him, hey, are you a fascist? Do you think he'd say, oh, yeah, definitely? No, He's not a fascist. He's not at all. In fact, he would be the only fascist in history who wants to reduce the scope of government. Oh my gosh. Can you believe the Doge is going in there and they actually want to cut government programs and reduce government spending? What a fascist move. You're a ridiculous person. What are you talking about? No fascist wants less control over anything. They want more control. It doesn't even make sense. It's not even ideologically coherent. But I guess my point is that the rhetoric needs to come. We cannot just continue to label Republicans as the worst thing to ever live, or Donald Trump is the worst person who ever lived. Republicans are an existential threat to the country and need to be dealt with. This kind of stuff is just going to result in more and more shootings, more and more political violence, and it is bad. And Democrats, every time that they get upset, storming the streets, burning down the buildings, this is not going to fly anymore. It just can't. St. Louis is just one city. What happened in Minneapolis? What happened in Seattle or Portland? What happened in all of these cities that caused all of it? You're talking billions of dollars in damage from the Black Lives Matter riots, from the riots from St. George. That's only talking about 2020. Look, we're not even going back to Ferguson and all the aftermath of that. We're not talking about any of this. We're just talking about one summer in 2020. The summer of love, the summer of St. George Floyd in 2020 was more politically violent than anything the right has done in 5 decades since the ending of segregation. There's no equivalent to whose side is violent. Because the second story I want to talk about, we'll actually do a little bit of this, because the right doesn't get in the streets. Again, you can have one day. You say, well, what about January 6th? What about this one day when less than 1,000 people stormed the Capitol? Oh, that sounds like the equivalent of literally millions of people in the streets burning down buildings. Millions of people across the country participating in riots. Because guess what? That's what happened. Oh, during the day, everyone held a sign and we all sang Kumbaya and we walked in the streets. And then the lights went down, the sun went down, the lights came on, and all of a sudden, the buildings burned down. All of a sudden, they've done I remember a study I saw that said that there were 30-something murders that happened, 30-something deaths that were caused by those riots in 2020. And not to mention the $2 billion in damages across the country that happened from those riots. So let's not pretend that January 6th is equivalent to anything. It's not. It really isn't. And as I've said before, I'm just sick of hearing about it. I don't care. One day, less than 1,000 Republicans did something that I think is dumb. Yeah, I think we can all agree. It was a dumb thing to do. You shouldn't have gone in the Capitol. But do we call it the equivalent? Are we going to say? One night in one city where I live was probably worse than January 6th. Again, they burned down the 7-Eleven right next to my house. That was one building in one city on one night during that summer. The political violence on the left is way worse than on the right. It's not even close. I don't care. I don't care either way. Left or right, or who's more responsible, or what are we doing, or what the case is. I don't care. It is incredible to watch the worst of society on display following any tragedy. And if you scroll through X or TikTok right now, I don't have TikTok, but I've seen the compilation videos. If you scroll through this stuff right now, I promise you're going to see countless posts and videos of people openly celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, as though it's a good thing. As though because he was a Republican, because he maybe said something you disagree with, or maybe he said something and you don't like it, that, it's a good thing he's dead. It's a good thing that his wife is a widow and his 2 young children will never know their father. Oh, it's a good thing. You evil, sick freak. I have no kind words for the kind of person who would celebrate that. It's disgusting. But it speaks to something about society that is broken. In a broken society, it is a sick society that thinks that this kind of behavior will be met with praise. Imagine this. I make a video for TikTok. I say, Charlie Kirk is dead. Let's have a laugh. He was so bad. And then I upload that to the internet. Why would I do that? Because I think that kind of thing is going to be the kind of things that earns me social points, that earns me credit in society. I would only think that if I'm either incredibly delusional or I live in a society that is so ill that to openly celebrate the murder of your opponents is something that is praiseworthy. And I think that that's where we live. I think that many of these people live in such small echo chambers that they actually are going to have support. They'll say, I've already seen things that say, let's do Trump again next. Oh my God, what a crazy world we live in. I don't like Joe Biden. I don't like AOC. I don't like Bernie Sanders. I don't like many of the Democrat politicians. I couldn't imagine being happy that one of them got shot. It would make me, honestly, I mean this, it would make me just as sad if a person that I disagree with in a place of prominence, like Bernie Sanders, was murdered as it did with someone I really liked, like Charlie Kirk, because it's a human being. It's a man who gets murdered. And I don't mean man as a person with male genitalia. I mean man as in a human being who is murdered in cold blood. It is sad, regardless of the circumstances. It should never be met with praise. It should never be met with celebration. I don't care who it is. I don't care how evil they are. A cold-blooded murder is not something that you, as a person, should ever be glib about. It's not, someone dies we don't like. Let's take just a genuinely evil person like Kim Jong-un. Am I going to be sad when Kim Jong-un dies? No. Is Kim Jong-un maybe an exception to the rule that, hey, if an assassin shot him, would I be okay with it? Maybe he's an exception. I mean, you're talking about a person who is responsible for the imprisonment of millions of people, the death, torture, rape of countless individuals. Is that the kind of person? Hey, Adolf Hitler. Let's use him as the example because he is basically the Antichrist to most people. Would I celebrate if someone shot Adolf Hitler? Yeah, that's my point I was making earlier. That would be a reason to celebrate. How many people like that exist in the world? Not many. And there's certainly not my political opposition in America. There's not a single person in a place of prominence in American politics that is so evil that we should celebrate when they've died. What is the worst? Who is killing millions of people? Because that's kind of the threshold you have to follow here for, hey, who's it appropriate to say, they deserved it? Hey, these people who killed millions of people, yeah, maybe they deserved it. Hey, even these guys, even terrible, awful human beings in this country, if they were killed, if you're a rapist or a human trafficker or a serial killer and you get murdered, I'm not going to celebrate your death. Yeah, you deserve it. Yeah, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. But to openly celebrate the death of someone bad, I don't know. It's gross, and I think it just degrades you as a human. You shouldn't do it. It's kind of disgusting behavior, and really, I just don't do it. Anyway, how do we fix this? How do we fix this problem? The answer is do what Charlie did. We need to have conversations. We need to talk to people we disagree with. We need to stop living in an echo chamber. We need to move forward. And this is a shame that he's not going to be around to do that because he was young and had a bright future ahead of him. I think he's the kind of guy who was going to run for office, and he's the kind of guy who could win a race like that. Not now, obviously, he's too young, but later. I think that's why he's one of the ones who gets shot, because he had a future. He was one of the best of the conservative influencers and speakers. Anyway, it's a shame. Go read my article if you want more on this topic. I think it was worth pointing out. I posted it. It's on my website. It's on the Chrestman Conversation Facebook page as well as my personal Facebook page. So just go check it out. And just be nice. That's what you should do. This second topic that I want to talk about is just as sad, just as gross, and I'm going to try and do it quickly because this story, I don't get emotional about many things, but these two stories hitting at the same time make me feel a little emotional. And this second topic 2, the stabbing of Irina Zarutska. This is another one. It's going to break your heart. Earlier this week, a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee was stabbed to death on a train in Charlotte, North Carolina. There's a video of this entire incident, and like the Charlie Kirk video, I would encourage you not to watch it. It is disturbing, and I have seen stills of it. I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to watch this young woman lose her life just because I can. I think I don't need to see it. I have seen enough to know and read the story. I don't need to see the video, but it's out there if you really feel like you're going to want to watch it. I don't think you should. Here's what happened. Irina Zarutska gets off work. She works at a pizzeria. She boards a train, has a seat. Roughly 4 minutes later, the guy who's sitting in the seat behind her stands up. He unfolds a knife, and he stabs her 3 times. He then walks around the train car and departs at the next stop. This poor woman bled to death there on the train, died. No one helped her for minutes while she just sat there and bled. It took some people a minute to realize what was going on. Some people look around, some people look away. One guy eventually goes over and tries to stop her from bleeding, but she's dead. She died right there on that spot in the train, stabbed at random by a crazy, sick, disturbed individual who is a piece of human garbage, who I'm not pro capital punishment, but if anyone ever deserved it, this guy. And so this is a terrible story. It's sickening for so many reasons, and there's not an easy way to say this, but this is the fault of the Democratic Party and their politics. There are going to be some people who disagree with that. You are wrong. This is Democratic politics. This is where it gets you. This soft on crime bullshit gets you crazy people stabbing people at random. And people don't want to hear this, but it's true. The death of Irina Zarutska is directly linked to soft on crime policies in Charlotte, North Carolina, and across the country. The scumbag that murdered her was arrested 14 times prior to this. 14 times. I want you to look at something. I pulled up a picture here. I want you to just look at this. So this is the guy. Here he is. Hey, look at this guy. These are his mugshots. What do we see here? Mugshots from years and years and years. Look at him, look at him, look at him. Why was he on the street? Who gets arrested 14 times? Why is this man on the street walking around? We had a similar case here in St. Louis. The young lady who lost her legs, the volleyball player who was here in St. Louis for a volleyball tournament, who lost her legs. The guy who hit her with a car and cut her legs off was one of these guys who was out on his own recognizance. He had an ankle monitor on. He violated 24 times. He wasn't supposed to be driving because he was a drunk driver, and he was drunk that day, and he hit this woman. He was the same guy. He should have been in prison. Why wasn't he in prison? Why wasn't this guy in jail? Look at these mugshots. 14 times he was arrested, not for bullshit, not for little things, for real serious crimes. And he was out on the street. Why was he out on the street? Because they decided that he just needed to be let go. Because Democrats believe in cashless bail. They believe in plea deals without jail time. They believe that there shouldn't be such a thing as a 3-strike law. And they call for a reduction in the prison population. They say there's an over-incarceration policy, an over-incarceration problem in America. These policies, the Democratic policies, because they think that the real problem with the criminal justice system is that we're too hard on the criminals. These policies lead to death and destruction in the streets wherever they go. Here in St. Louis, in Charlotte, any major city that you go to are worse, because when that guy in San Francisco, Chesa Boudin, who just let crime run rampant. The lady here, Kim Gardner, in St. Louis, just let crime run rampant. These prosecutors who don't believe in policing crime just make things worse for everyone who lives in their areas. We do not have an over-incarceration problem in America. We have an under-incarceration problem in America. My solution to crime is simple, and it's an easy one. Listen to me here, because I'm gonna draw you an easy plan to follow to fix the problem of crime in major cities. When you find the criminal who's committed the crime, you arrest that criminal, and you put him in prison, and you put him there for a long time. End of discussion. There you go. I just solved crime for you. Because it turns out that you actually can police your way out of crime. You can if you just arrest the criminals and then lock them up for a long, long time. The guy who I just showed you those mugshots of, his name is DeCarlos Brown Jr. He was arrested in January of this year. He was released pending trial because he made a pinky promise to the magistrate judge that he's going to show up for his court date. You released a career criminal with a history of mental illness onto the street because he signed a document to say, hey, I promise I won't commit more crime and I'll show up for court. What is wrong with you? This magistrate judge, her name is Teresa Stokes. The death of Irina Zarutska is your fault, Teresa. I hate to tell you this. Actually, I don't hate to tell you this. I hate your policies. You did this. You let this crazy, mentally ill sociopath out onto the streets to murder a woman for no reason. And you did it because you, don't want to violate DeCarlos Brown Jr.'s civil rights? He violated the civil rights of multiple people. There's a quote, I'm going to paraphrase here. I don't know if I have it exactly correctly. I can't remember it off the top of my head. It goes something like, mercy to the cruel is cruelty to the innocent. And what that means is, what you've done is you allowed an evil man onto the streets because you were so concerned about his treatment in the criminal justice system that you allowed him to prey on the innocent and murder this poor woman. He had just had to sign a document and this woman let him go. This judge, and I realize she's just a magistrate judge, which for those of you who don't know, it's basically like kind of like a play pretend judge. You're not exactly appointed. You don't have to have a law degree. And we know you don't have to have a law degree because Teresa Stokes couldn't get a law degree. She's failed the bar exam, I think, multiple times. Not a bright person. Can't get a law degree, but she gets to work as a judge. And that means she gets to make policy in certain less important cases. And apparently this DeCarlos Brown Jr. came across her desk and she said, you can just go out on the street. No, it's fine. I work with the mentally ill. I'm on a charity. I donate to a charity, and I don't believe that we should just hold people in jail until trial. You just go, be free, run on the trains of Charlotte, North Carolina, and murder at your leisure. Ridiculous. You looked at a career criminal with an extensive rap sheet and mental problems and said, here's the door. Just go have fun. Unbelievable. First of all, she should be stripped of her job immediately. Secondly, judges like this, we should pass some sort of a law that means if you make a terrible decision as a judge to show mercy to a crazy person who then goes to commit more crimes, guess what? You go to jail, or you're done. Your judgeship is terminated. Something. So you have to pay a gigantic fine you have to pay restitution to the victims' families for your bad decisions. This Teresa Stokes, she should be ashamed. She should go live in hiding, not because she should worry about her safety, but because she should feel such shame for her terrible choices in life that she caused the murder of this young woman. And yes, it is her fault. This crazy person, he was going to be crazy. He was going to be a criminal. He was going to be a terrible person. It's his fault. Everyone who allowed him the opportunity to do those things, it's their fault too. That starts with Teresa Stokes. What a terrible person to make this terrible judgment call. Put me in this position. I have no law degree. I have no training as a judge. I've seen some Law and Order. Okay, maybe I get it. Put this guy in front of me. Let me look at his rap sheet. Ask me the question. Hey, what do you think? We should hold this guy or we should let him go? I look at the 14 mugshots. Oh, you're saying he's been arrested for larceny. He's been arrested for breaking and entering. He's been arrested for burglary. He's been arrested for armed robbery. I think we hold on to this one. Oh, 14 times he's been arrested? Hey, one time maybe is a mistake. 14 times isn't a mistake. You're a career criminal. Why don't you just stay in the jail? It's not that hard. It's not that difficult to make that decision. If you're incapable or not competent enough to make that, you shouldn't be a judge. And it makes me, and again, but this is the policy. This is obviously, I don't know her politics, but I'm going to make some guesses that she's on the left if you're making these kind of terrible decisions. Certainly not a conservative, certainly not a tough on crime person, and anyone who's not tough on crime shouldn't be a judge. Anyone who's not tough on crime shouldn't be in the criminal justice system. These reformers who get this job and they want to change the system, no, bad. Get out of there. We don't need you. No Kim Gardners, no Chesa Boudins, no Teresa Stokes. We don't need any of them in the criminal justice system. This woman would be alive. Irina Zarutska would be alive if America upheld its promise to some refugee from Ukraine who said she wanted to come to America to be safe, and we failed her. The system failed her because the system thinks that criminals, the rights of criminals, are more important than the rights of the other 350 million Americans that live in this country and deserve the right to peace and freedom and prosperity. The mayor of Charlotte, this Vi Lyles, is another Democrat who, she released a statement that was so bad she had to release a second statement and apologize and basically say, no, I didn't mean it. She was more concerned, so tone deaf, she was more concerned about the mentally ill, crazy person murderer than she was with the victim. She didn't even mention the victim. She said that, oh my God, this tragic situation, this is a quote, this tragic situation that sheds light on a problem with societal safety nets related to mental health care and the systems that should be in place. Then she said that the guy, he appeared to have suffered a crisis. Who gives a shit about that guy? Seriously, why is your statement concerned about him or the mental health of people on the streets? I don't care about that. I really don't. Not when those mentally ill people are committing crime. Guess what? If you're mentally ill on the streets, I have a solution for that too. It's called a sanitarium. We should bring them back and just lock them up. If you're a schizophrenic, crazy person mumbling to yourself on the streets, you shouldn't be on the streets. You should be in an institution. If we can't put you in jail for vagrancy or whatever the case may be, we should put you in an institution where we house crazy people so they don't kill innocent women on trains. This woman fled a war-torn country for the freedom and safety of America, and she was stabbed to death coming home from work. The U.S., we failed. We promised safety, security, opportunity, and a mentally ill career criminal ran the streets of Charlotte and murdered her. They run the major cities. That's what people, I live in St. Louis. People talk about this all the time. People who live in the county, they're afraid to come downtown. They're afraid to come down where I live because of the crime downtown. Why should anyone be afraid of crime in America? Why can't we just take the criminals and throw them in prison and then take that key and chuck it in the ocean? We don't need to let them out. Guess what? Innocent people don't shoot up the streets. Innocent people don't commit armed robbery. You know, if you get caught shoplifting, you get caught breaking some beer bottles or spray painting a building, you say, this is this thing. Kids make mistakes. They do stupid things. It's fine. You get caught beating up somebody or getting in a fight. Let's use a fight. Fights are examples. Fights, hey, sometimes they're two-sided. Okay. You get caught whacking someone over the head with a shovel and stealing their wallet. That's a different thing. You get caught pulling a gun on a group of people leaving a baseball game and having them run their wallets so that you can steal all their money. That's a different thing. You get caught murdering someone or assaulting someone or, I don't know. Violent crime is a different thing. You don't make that mistake. That's not a mistake. Mistakes are a 16-year-old walked out of the store with a bottle of beer in his coat. Okay, all right. And yes, I'll include this into something else. A 16-year-old broke into a car and took it on a joyride. That's a different thing. Now, a 16-year-old pulled a woman out of a car at gunpoint and stole her vehicle. That's a different thing. Violent crime is not the same. People who commit violent crime need to go to jail for a long, long, long time. This guy did 5 years for armed robbery. He should have done 20. Clearly, he should never have seen the light of day. And it just makes me sad. I want to read you something here. We always focus on the bad things here, and we've been focusing a lot on that today. I want to just read something to you. Irina Zarutska graduated from Synergy College in Kyiv with a degree in art and restoration. This is from her obituary. She shared her creative generosity, gifting family and friends with her artwork. She loved sculpting and designing unique, eclectic clothing that reflected her vibrant spirit. She had a deep love for animals, and she often cared for her neighbors' pets. People will always remember her radiant smile. Take a look at this. Do me a favor. The next time, this is her. The next time that someone wants to talk to me about cashless bail or soft on crime policies, this is my answer. This is the answer to your argument. I'm not debating whether or not we are too hard on criminals. This is the answer to that question. This is my only rebuttal that I need for my argument. I'm going to show this picture of this lady, and we're going to know that I'm right and you're wrong. All of the people in this chain of events that have demonized the police and pretended that the criminal justice system is the problem in this country, they're all at fault for this. Yes, the person who commits the violent act is responsible. But when you release that person into the room with the innocent, you're also responsible. And this guy is not a shoplifter. He's not a vandal. He's not a joyrider. He's a career criminal who committed violent acts in the past. Why is he on that train? Why is he allowed to do what he did? Why is it that regular Americans live in fear of crazy people like this on the streets? It's not acceptable. It's not okay. It's happening all over the country, and it has to change. And it changes by locking them up and throwing away the key. That is how you do it. We do not have an over-incarceration problem. We have an under-incarceration problem. Every violent criminal should go to jail and should go to jail for a long, long time. Should go to jail until they're so frail that when we release them, they can't commit crime again. Hey, guess what? You know what else we should do? No weightlifting in jail. Get rid of all the weights. You can do cardio. We'll get you a nice little elliptical. You can be healthy. You can do some push-ups. No weights. You don't need to get big. You don't need to get strong. No reason to bench press. No reason to lift your biceps. Don't do them pull-ups. You don't need them. Get rid of all of it. You got to come out of jail and be weak and meek and feeble, and then you can leave. When the arthritis in your knees makes it so that you can't run innocent people down, that's when you can leave prison. That's what we should do to violent criminals. Anyway, I'm sad and I'm angry that this kind of stuff happens in this country. There's no reason it should. Anyway, we're going to leave it there for the week. As always, I hope everybody here has a better week than it's been this week. And I really do. I hope everyone is safe, happy, healthy. And guess what? I hope that about people who disagree with me. I don't just want people who agree with me or watch this show to be happy and healthy. My deep, dark secret is that I love everybody, and I want everybody to be happy and healthy. And I really mean that. So, everyone, I hope you have a fantastic week, and I will catch you next Friday.